Welcome back, crime spies. Who's ready for another riveting day of testimony? While we wait for the live stream to start, please do the things that they say. You know, the likes, the follows, share, commenting below. They say that's supposed to help me grow my channel. At this point, I'm not sure if it's true or if it's total bullshit. Get comfortable, grab a beverage, depending on your part of the world, could be coffee, tea, cocktail. It will be starting soon. Thanks again for joining me. Please make sure to make your presence known in the chat. Welcome back, crime spies. I can't hear you. What is going on? So, welcome to the first installment of Bare Justice, where we take the live stream trial and we strip it down. I had kind of fun coming up with that idea. Unfortunately, for me, I had some issues with guess who? CapCut. Bastards. So I'm not sure if my device here got disconnected. Maybe I can hear myself. I don't know. All right, so we are going to, this took forever. So I guess I don't need to bore you with the details, but here we go. So, well, I do have to give you kind of a lowdown. So what I've gone ahead and done is I took the whole entire day and I ran it through the transcription editor thing, where you can take out filler words like okay, and I also took out the pauses. The one thing I noticed, so what I was going to originally do is just upload them, like, as the testimony concluded, process it, upload it, so it'll come in parts. But because I had to monkey around so much, I ended up taking those two, like, putting them on private just for now, because I'm not 100% satisfied with them. And I ended up putting it in one big, long one. Now, today was only a half day. But doing this stripped down version, bare justice, if you will, we got it down to 1 hour, 46 minutes. So there we have it. Now I just have to switch over here and turn on all right, let's proceed. Wish me luck. Oh, wait, you can't see that all the way. Hold on.
Good morning. Right, we all set?
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Morning.
Now, I do have the audio all the way up. Oh, no, my head is covering the Bare Justice guy.
So, police officers are issued a, looks like a credit card. I have it in my wallet. The time I enter or leave the police department, the exterior doors going out the back are, there's a key scan. You put it up to it to unlock the door to come in. When you leave, you don't have to go home. If you need to go into the booking area, you have to scan yourself in and out, and to get out of the cell, you have to scan in.
Try and keep your voice up so
Yes,
the
sorry.
last few jurors can hear you. How many officers?
Boy, I can't hear it very well. I must need to turn up.
I would believe all of them.
And how many, right that, this information is stored at the Canton police station?
I don't know the software, but I believe it's recorded anytime we would come and go.
And say you believe that it's recorded at the time that the information is obtained? In other words, somebody key swipes in and that information is then stored, you believe, at the Canton Police Station?
I don't know the software, so I wouldn't be able to give you an educated response to that.
Do you yourself, as a sergeant, have access to the key swipe data, or is that limited to certain officers at the department?
I don't believe I have access to that. I've never accessed
You've
that.
never accessed it. Your Honor, we do have a stipulation between the parties, if the court will accept it, to introduce the key swipe records from January 29th of 2022.
Okay.
What that is the next exhibit.
Any objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. There's some redactions.
Yes, we have redacted them. The court can certainly take a look to make sure that.
Have you all agreed to the redactions?
May we approach justice to that?
Yes.
Before you now took the stand today, who will report?
By police report?
Yes.
Yes.
You're looking for anything specifically?
No.
How long did you take to review that report between yesterday and today?
I scanned over it.
A few minutes?
Sure. Yes.
Spoken to anybody about your report?
No.
Nobody from the Canton Police?
No.
You recall that I had asked you about the fact that one name had not been completely spelled out in terms of the first name, right?
Yes.
And you had, I believe, indicated that Sergeant Lank was the one that did that or added that to the report.
Not altered it. So he was the one that got those names. So when he entered his report, I believe he would enter those.
Okay. We entered your report, correct?
Anybody writes a supplemental, if you have the authorization, can enter who you speak to add those names. I only spoke to Roberts, Miss Reed, and McCabe that morning.
But the report has your name on it, correct?
Yes.
If you speak to anybody from the prosecution, either Mr. Lally or Ms. McLaughlin or anybody else from that office about this issue?
No.
You would agree with me that it is important when you're writing a police report to be transparent, correct?
Yes.
Boy, I can't hear that hardly at all. They're
Yes.
You do not want to mislead the reader into believing something that is not true, correct?
Yes.
May I approach you on?
Yes.
I'm showing you first P for identification. You identified that yesterday, correct?
maybe I
Yes.
just have the volume on my
We
ears too low.
went over with the jury 5 bits of information that are at the top of the report, starting with the incident number, correct?
Yes.
You had indicated again, incident 22-87-OF,
Yes.
call 22-449.
I shut off my fan.
Yes.
Date and time reported January 29th, 22 at 6:08.
Yes.
And the report date and time was January 29th, 22 at 8:24 a.m., correct?
Yes.
Reporting officer Sergeant Sean Goode, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to show you now what has been marked Q for identification. And you can hang on to P if you like. With regard to bits of information, first of all, let me have you identify Q for identification. I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm reading Q.
Okay, what is identification?
Exhibit Q.
Right. What is the actual document?
We call this a face sheet.
And with regard to P for identification, that's also a face sheet, correct?
Yes.
They appear to be nearly identical, correct?
Correct, except the top right corner, one says 1/30/2022, and the next would be 10/25/2022.
That is the print date of the report, correct?
Okay. I don't know.
So when those two face sheets have been printed, ignore that. With regard to the information about the incident number and the date of the report and the date of the incident and the reporting officer, those appear to be identical, correct?
Correct.
Now, with regard to P for identification, which is the first report that you were shown, and you were shown that yesterday, and now you have it in front of you, there is a photo on the right side of that report, is there not?
There is.
Do you know what that photo is of?
It looks like the scene, probably a couple later when the snow had melted.
Okay. Does it look like a berm that was actually
Both?
uncovered by the officers on scene the very first day?
Yes. Are we looking at Q?
No.
P? Yes. P? Yes. Correct.
And then with regard to Q for identification, which again is the face sheet with the identical information, is there a different photo?
Yes.
What does that photo appear to depict, if you know?
It looks like the same area that Mr. O'Keefe possibly was found, I believe.
Those two documents, P for and Q for identification, those are actually your report, correct?
Correct. But can I explain?
Mr. Lally will sure let you explain. At this point, I'll be asking the questions. If you
Okay.
don't mind. Your Honor, I offer into this as full exhibits, both P and Q for identification. Just the face sheet.
Is there an objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the objection sustained.
Approach.
Okay, can I see the questions you can ask while you wait for this?
I'm just getting the exhibit that I need, Your Honor. Appreciate it.
Suppose what I could
Yes.
do. God, I wonder how much time that would take.
Sergeant, do you recognize what that depicts?
Because
Yes.
it only takes out like pauses. It's
I believe
doing a
that's a
pretty
photo
good
of
job.
a piece of a tape.
When you say a photo of a piece of a taillight, you're obviously referring to a piece of the taillight allegedly found at 34 Fairview in Canton.
Yes,
Now, that photo is the photo that is included in exhibit Q for identification that you previously saw, right? That's the second photo, is it not?
on the second face sheet that he gave me?
Yes.
Yes,
All right. I'm showing you, if I may approach again,
Yes.
what has already been marked exhibit 20A. Do you recognize that?
yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the berm from that morning.
Okay. And exhibit 20, photo that was in the first version of your report, which was P for identification, correct?
Yes,
I can take those back from you, sir. Published I'm sorry. With regard to the first photo that you identified, which was the piece of tail light that allegedly was found at 34 Ferry, that was a fair and accurate representation of that photo, correct?
yes.
All right. May I offer that, Your Honor?
Okay, there's no objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, the exhibit number was? 42, thank you. May I, 20A and separately for the jury, Your Honor?
Okay.
Okay. The photo of the berm that was included in the first version of your police report, which was P for identification.
Yes.
All right, let's put up 42, please. No. I'm sorry, 42.
Right here.
I don't have it.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
No wonder. The sticker's upside down, but there we go. That is the photo of the piece of taillight allegedly found at 34 Fairview that you have identified as exhibit 42, correct?
Yes,
All right. Now, having seen those photos, one was included identification, one was included in Q for identification, correct?
yes,
Which you've previously identified as your reports, report, I should say.
yes.
Your Honor, I would offer the top portion of P and Q for identification as a full exhibit.
Okay, and there's an approval?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. It will commit, jury actually gets it, we'll have it on the same 9x12 paper that everything else is.
Perfect.
And all exhibits go through Madam Court Reporter.
Oh, of course.
So, jurors, I'm going to send you out for 5 minutes, okay? May I see those, Madam Court Reporter, please? All right. So I thought you were going to cut them. Apparently, you probably don't have scissors. Let's get these so that they're acceptable to go to the jury. I mean, this just went a whole report on it.
I'm sorry?
This just came into evidence with the whole report, and that's not what you agreed to at sidebar.
Right. I guess, but what I was going to do, because it's folded, all I was going to show the jury was the part that got in.
But these are now in evidence,
Understand.
okay? And that happened. So fix them. Do we have scissors, Mr. Clerk? Thank you.
Okay.
So why don't you fix them, run them through a copy machine. All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess. And actually, this is probably a good time for me to say, it's not defense, it's not just the prosecution, but we're taking an awful lot of these jurors' times. We're taking days and weeks. Let's not squander by, repetitive evidence that we shouldn't need to take. Okay, let's move this along. All right, 5 minutes.
All right, please.
And of course, the identical. You have,
With that session
But just
18.
like that, we went
Your
right
Honor, I
through it.
have P and Q marked as
Okay, so if you're just joining me, this is the debut of Bare Justice, taking the live stream of the trial from earlier today and stripping it down. There are 3 witnesses today. Today was only a half day. The stripped down version is 1 hour, 46 minutes. It's a little choppy, but it's not bad,
the next exhibits in the
in
trial.
my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
With the court's permission, I'd like to display these one above the other.
Okay.
Okay. Sergeant, previously details in these reports, you would agree that each of these reflects your report. It says reporting officer Sergeant Sean Quick, correct?
Yes,
Each of these, page 1 of your report, correct?
yes,
You've previously testified that you call that the face sheet of the report, correct?
yes,
Each of these has the identical incident number and call number, correct?
yes,
The identical date and time reported, correct?
yes,
the identical report date and time,
Wait a minute
correct?
again.
Yes,
And of course, the identical officer.
yes.
Other than the date of the face sheet of your report, one appears to be in January, one appears to be in October. The major change is the photo that's included on the face sheet, correct?
Yes. Can I explain why?
So that second with the piece of tail light that is included on the first page of your report, that photo is not from January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
You never took a photo of a piece of taillight on January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
You never saw taillight at 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Did you personally switch the photo on the face sheet of your police report?
No.
Do you know who did?
So whoever updated the report, their supplemental, you add photos.
But in answer to my question, do you know the specific person from your department who altered the photo on the face sheet of your report?
I didn't take the supplemental report, so I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who took.
But given that this is your report, you're the reporting officer, you are responsible for the content of that report, are you not?
My report, yes, not other officers' supplementals to an investigation.
All right, but this is your report. This is the face sheet for the reporting officer, Sergeant Sean Goode, is it not?
Yes, on the face sheet.
All right. Would you agree with me that someone reading this report and seeing that the date and time of the report is listed as January 29th of 2022 at 8:24 a.m., that's when you wrote it, correct?
That's when I logged in, yes.
Somebody reading that and seeing a photo of a piece of taillight might believe that that photo is from the same date that you're writing the report, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you think it's misleading to include a photo on the face sheet of the report when the report is dated January 29th, 2022, and the photo is not from that day, it's from sometime later?
Objection.
Sustained.
Is there anything on what is now marked Exhibit 44 on that face sheet that indicates the date and time that that photo on Exhibit 44 was taken?
No.
Is there anything on Exhibit 44, that face sheet of your report, that indicates that it applies to some supplemental report that was later filed?
No.
Let me have a moment.
Yes.
Nothing further, thank you.
All right, please take the exhibit down. And we need that exhibit, Mr. Yannetti.
Oh, yes, of course. We have two others as well.
Okay, the exhibits are to remain up here with the clerk.
Clerk.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Go right ahead, Mr. Lally.
So, Sergeant Goode, turning to some questions you were asked yesterday and whether or not he was a town selectman, is that correct?
Yes.
And he is currently, is that correct?
Yes.
And was he on January 29th of 2022?
No.
So he was elected to the Board of Selectmen subsequent to this date that you've been talking about, January 29th, 2022.
Yes.
Location where you were directed to where Mr. O'Keefe had been located just after 6 a.m. Where was that in relation to the property line between 34 Fairview Road and the home next door?
And I guess probably 10, 12 feet to the property line.
No, you were asked some questions about having been to that residence at 34 Fairview Road prior. You indicated you had been there years ago with Sergeant Lank, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was that in regard to, sir?
It was a hit and run investigation.
And who, if anyone, so why were you at that residence at 34 Fairview Road?
So there was a motor vehicle crash at the corner of Dedham and Wall Street, and the suspect vehicle had fled the scene. So Lank, that day, night, he followed oil spill of the vehicle down Dedham Street, Cedar Crest, all the way down to the intersection of Cedar Crest to Fairview. The oil actually drove into 34 Fairview, where we found the vehicle.
And who, if anyone, through your investigation, who, if anyone, did you was operating that?
Yeah, Tim.
And was Mr. Timothy Alba, was he charged in reference to that incident?
Yes, he was.
And do you know approximately when that was?
It was in 2009. I don't know the exact date. I know the year.
Now, as far as your report, you asked a number of questions about that. But I'm sorry, before I get to that, when you were leaving the scene, there was a mono that had on your windshield, correct?
Yes.
And after leaving the scene, what didn't happen with the snowfall throughout the 4th day?
I wouldn't believe covered. We had to clear off the windshields. It had snowed considerably.
And then following that, throughout sort of the course of the day in the afternoon, what, if anything, observable?
It continually got worse.
As far as your report is concerned, what you were shown and what you've seen, has there been any change as far as your narrative in reference to who you talked to, what they said, anything of that effect?
No.
You've been asked a bunch of questions about what you called a face sheet. Can you explain to the jury sort of what a face sheet is and sort of how that comes in?
It's the top sheet of the actual meat of the report. It just gives you the date and time. Usually, if you can front on the sheet, the party would be involved. If there was a suspect, defendant, it would be their name, date of birth, social security number, their information.
So, as far as sort of the meat of the report, it has no real relation to that. We're handed two exhibits or two parts of the report, and you were told to ignore the date that they were printed, correct?
Correct.
And so, what, if any, significance would the date that they were printed in relation to what's on a face sheet?
So in this case, there was supplemental reports done after the 29th. Reports were added to my initial report. You can add a sub-narrative. So if that includes meeting new people, talking to other people, or taking photos of what you found, you would add that to our report, and it'd be documented in the supplemental.
You had offered a couple times to explain to the jury sort of why a photo might be different from one face sheet when it's printed versus a subsequent date when the face sheet is printed. Can you explain to the jury at this time sort of why did that happen?
So when that face sheet was printed, it's a top photo, and now new photo added, that could be now the top photo on that face sheet when it was printed.
And how would that be something that someone would physically go in and do? Is that sort of within the system automatically occur?
I don't know how this numbers so we added our photos on January 29th, and then any photos that were added, the software would put them 1 through 20 or how many there were.
Okay.
If I might,
Very briefly.
you had just talked about how Tim Albert was in the investigation that you did years ago, correct?
Yes.
The evidence in that case, you would agree with me, was strong against Tim Albert for the crime, was it not?
For leaving the scene, yes.
Sure. Sergeant Lank actually was able to follow the trail of fluid from the accident scene to 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
And Tim Albert admitted that he got nervous and left the scene, correct?
Correct.
Now, despite the fact that he was charged, are you aware the case was just flat out dismissed upon restitution?
Objection, move to strike, Your Honor.
The objection sustained. Jury, you're to disregard that.
All right, you're all set, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
What's important to the defendant's case.
All
So,
right.
tell me
We're done with
exactly,
one.
based on the voir dire
Now,
yesterday,
I'm just going to pause it
exactly
for a
what you
moment.
hope to.
Like I said, I like it. It's a little choppy. I think there must be some kind of threshold, like, because it's taking out like all the pauses in between the words. So maybe I need to set that threshold a little higher, like, you know, more than just like a fraction of a second, maybe a couple fractions of a second. And hopefully that'll smooth it out. But so far I like it. So let's just continue on. Now, so for day 5, the end of day 5, they had a voir dire. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The witness name Lank, Sergeant Lank or Lieutenant Lank. It's one of those. So that was at the end of day 5, Monday. So now, before he comes and testifies, he's pretty much like the rest of day 6. And again, day 6 was only half a day. Our stripped down bare justice version's only 1 hour, 46 minutes. But the judge has a conversation with the 2 attorneys that I'm actually going to probably just skip through, since this is bare justice testing debut. It's not very long. It's like 6 minutes. Feel free to go back. Oh, and I figured out how to do timestamps in the videos. So when I'm finished here, I'll go ahead and do the little timestampy thing for you. All right. So this is...
Presented the court and jury in case they are hearing truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you.
Morning. All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Michael Lank, L-A-N-K.
And how are you report, sir?
I'm a lieutenant with the Canton Police.
And
Pardon
how
me,
long
it
in
was
total have you been
Lieutenant
a member of Canton?
Lank.
Over 24 years.
And how long have you held the rank of lieutenant with
It'll be 2 years in August.
Now, prior to, well, let me ask you first, with reference to your responsibilities as lieutenant, if you could explain to the jury just in general terms, what are your duties and responsibilities as a lieutenant?
I'm gonna skip
I
this part.
oversee the gun licensing and patrol.
Your shift sergeant does call from Sergeant Goode. What, if any, information did he relay to you at that time?
Sergeant Good stated that
Approximately what time, Sergeant
Okay, now they're going to start talking about his communication with Sergeant Goode, who's the guy that just left.
Goode called?
I believe it was 6:08.
And with reference to that call, the initial call from Sergeant Goode, what, if any, information did he relay to you at that time?
Sergeant Good stated that there was a gentleman found in the snow at 34 Fairview Road, and he was in very grave condition, and he brought it to my attention that he was also a Boston police officer.
And subsequent to that, through the course of your investigative work on this case, did you learn who that unresponsive male was?
Yes,
And who did you learn?
John O'Keefe.
And upon receiving that call, where did you go?
I went to 34 Fairview Road.
And if you know, about what time would you estimate that you arrived in the area of 34 Fairview Road?
I live fairly close, so I was on scene by, I believe it was 6:24, 6:25.
And upon your arrival, who, if anyone else, from your department?
I'm going to pause for a moment to complain. This audio for this trial, the judge comes in hot, the witnesses come in hot, and the attorneys come in so light. I actually question whether or not their microphone works. So, I just wanted to mention that. I had boosted it a little bit to catch the attorney because Lally was a little quiet on the first witness Goode's testimony. But I mean, honestly, you could sit and tinker with just the volume the whole entire time.
Was there prior to?
Officer Sarif, Officer Mullaney, and Sergeant Good.
And when you arrived, beyond sort of their officers from your apartment, what, if any, other activity or what, if any, other persons did you observe on scene?
When I arrived, I observed that the ambulance was still there. There was multiple EMTs, and I observed some witnesses also.
And with respect to the ambulance, it's your understanding Mr. O'Keefe was in that ambulance?
Yes,
Did you ever see Mr. O'Keefe on that one?
I did not.
And at some point, the other officers who preceded your arrival, did they direct you where Mr. O'Keefe was found when they first arrived?
They did.
And where was that sort of in relation to the property, if you recall?
If you're looking at 34 Fairview Road, it was on the left side of the property, about 8 feet from the road.
And in that sort of general area, what, if any, sort of landmarks or other sort of items in that area of the front yard did you observe?
Observed a flagpole, there was a fire hydrant, and some brush area over there.
And upon your arrival on scene, who was the first person that you spoke to?
Sergeant Sean Good.
And had a conversation with him, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then following talking to Sergeant Goode, who, if anyone else, did you speak to on scene?
I spoke to Jennifer McCabe.
And where was it in relation to the scene that you first spoke to Jennifer McCabe?
I believe I spoke to Jennifer McCabe right in front of Mark Cruiser 683, which was assigned to Officer Sarif.
And then about how long a conversation was that initially with Ms. McCabe?
I would say probably 8 or 9 minutes.
And in addition to Ms. McCabe, what, if any, other sort of civilians did you observe in that area around that time?
I observed Kerry Roberts and don't recall seeing anybody else at the scene. I was focused on Ms. McCabe.
Now, with respect to Jennifer McCabe, so after you spoke with Ms. McCabe for 8 or 9 minutes, with anyone else did you speak to at that time?
So after I spoke with Ms. McCabe, I believe I was able to then contact the CPAC unit.
And what is the CPAC?
CPAC unit is the investigative division for the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office.
Why did you contact them?
Because I was made aware at some point that it did not appear that Mr. O'Keefe was going to survive, and I wanted them to be aware of the situation.
And did they respond at that time?
No.
Now, with reference to that sort of a typical protocol, or what sort of typical protocol would you have responding to a scene of this nature?
Yes, any sort of scene where it appears that the person is not going to survive, we would contact State Police CPAC unit
And why is that?
because they investigate all deaths.
So they have jurisdiction over all unattended deaths, is that
Correct.
As well as homicides, things of that nature.
Correct.
Now, once you call who, if anyone, you spoke to on that first call or notification to CPAC,
It would have been just the dispatch center on the first call.
and what if the subsequent calls that you have with regard to CPAC while you were on scene that morning?
I got a return call from Trooper Michael Proctor.
And from your conversation with Trooper Proctor, what was your understanding as far as their response to the scene at that time?
So at that point in time, Trooper Proctor informed me that they would not be responding.
I don't know what that noise is, but if I could just ask you to repeat your last response, because frankly, I didn't know.
Yes. In speaking to Trooper Proctor, he advised me at that point that they would not be responding.
And did he inform you as to why at that time?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now, when you arrived on scene, what if anything did you note as far as the weather conditions?
Weather conditions were extremely poor. There were high winds, heavy snow, and freezing temperatures.
Now, I mentioned when you first arrived on scene, Mr. O'Keefe was in the back of that ambulance, is that
Correct.
And when was it that the ambulance left in relation to when you arrived?
Very shortly after I arrived, I would say within 5 minutes.
Now, as far as injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, if anyone relayed any information in regard to that?
Sergeant Goode advised me that
Sustained.
Now, as far as following your conversation with Ms. McCabe, what was sort of steps that you took on scene?
after I spoke to Ms. McCabe, I advised her that we were going to need to speak with the homeowners. She said that they were probably sleeping. I advised her that we were going to need to speak with them, and that's when I placed the call to the CPAC unit.
And prior to that, when you were on scene, had you seen anyone come in or go out of the residence at 34 Fairview Road?
No.
And as far as sort of the other houses on the street, what any activity did you observe with reference to any residents of those homes coming in or going out of their homes?
I did not observe anybody come in or out of their home.
Following your initial call to CVAC and conversation with Chief Proctor, what is it that you did next?
Once that call was complete, Sergeant Goode and I observed that there was now a light on in the house of 34 Fairview, and we made the decision to then go in and speak with the homeowners.
And how was it that you sort of got to the home?
I don't recall if we believe we used the driveway, but I'm not 100% sure.
And you came into the home, call which door that you used to enter the home?
The main door, the front door.
When you entered in through the main door, what, if you could describe to the jury sort of what you observed as far as what was before you from a layout perspective?
There was a staircase right in front of us, and to the right, it entered into like, it appeared to be like a dining area.
And who, if anyone, did you speak with inside the home that morning?
Brian Albert and Nicole Albert.
And what, if any, relationship to the home did you determine based on your conversation with them?
They were the homeowners.
Now, Brian Albert, is that someone that you knew prior to January 29th, 2022?
Yes.
And how did you know him?
I knew him as the oldest of the Albert brothers.
And did you know some of the other Albert brothers?
Yes.
And ask you this, Sergeant, where did you grow up?
Canton.
And how long have you lived in Canton?
We moved here, we moved to Canton when I was 5 years old.
So essentially, since you were 5 years old, you lived in the town, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you work in the town, correct?
Yes.
You have children?
I do.
Any of them play sports?
They do.
Objection.
I'm sustained.
Move to strike.
Strike that.
What offenders sort of, other than living and working in the town, what offenses is it that you do around the town?
I coach youth sports.
And have you done, how long have you done that for?
I would say at least 9 or 10 years.
And how would you describe your relationship with Brian Albert prior to that January 29th, 2022?
Civil?
Do you friends? Do you socialize?
No.
Now, in addition to Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, who, if anyone else, where did you speak to them within the home?
Just inside the door by the staircase.
And how would you describe their demeanor when you were speaking to them?
They appeared, especially Mr. Albert, appeared disheveled, looked like he had just woken up.
And about how long a conversation was it between Brian Albert and Nicole Albert that initial time?
I'd say 15, 20 minutes.
And beyond that, who, if anyone else, did you see within the home besides yourself, Sergeant Goode, and Mr. and Mrs. Albert?
Jennifer McCabe?
No one else at that time?
No.
Are you familiar with a gentleman named Brian Kate?
I am.
And how are you familiar with him?
I met Brian when he was stationed at our police station. I don't know how many years ago it was, but he was assigned to our building years ago. That's how I met him.
And assigned in what capacity? What I mean by that is, what did you do?
Brian is a ATF agent.
And did you see Mr. Higgins at any point in time during the time that you were at Fairview Road that morning?
Not on my initial response.
So sometime after, is that correct?
Yes.
And when about was that?
That would have been shortly after 9 a.m.
And we'll get to that in a moment, but after your conversation with Brian Albert and Nicole Albert inside the house, what is it that you did then?
Could you repeat that, please?
After talking to the homeowners, what was your next step on scene that day? What did you do next?
After speaking with the family, by that point, Lieutenant Gallagher was on scene and spoke with Lieutenant Gallagher as to what we were going to do next as far as the scene itself.
And to that end, what, if anything, did you or the other officers do with regard to sort of security of the scene at that time?
So we had put up some crime scene tape to try to protect the scene, but it was futile effort because of the wind. But there were patrol cars in front of the yard at all times, so the scene was fairly secure at all times.
And then, in relation to the scene or the area that you were directed, or your attention was directed to as where Mr. O'Keefe had been found, what, if anything, did you do with reference to that area?
I stood by and observed while Lieutenant Gallagher used a leaf blower to try to clear the top layers of snow off of the scene.
And at some point in time, well, that particular, was that memorialized in any way?
Yes,
Okay, and how was that so?
in my report.
I'm sorry, beyond that, was there any sort of photos or video that were taken of that leaf blower process?
Yes, Sergeant Goode was able to take video while Lieutenant Gallagher used the leaf blower.
And you've seen that video, is that correct?
Yes.
And what's contained in that video, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of sort of what happened on scene that morning?
Yes.
Now, in addition let me ask this, as far as the leaf blower was concerned, what was sort of what was the thinking behind that?
The purpose behind the leaf blower was to just take the top layers of snow off to reveal what was underneath and try to preserve any potential evidence.
And upon employing that, what, if anything, did you then observe in that area of the front lawn?
Ultimately, we were able to see what appeared to be blood drops in the snow, as well as a drinking glass, cocktail glass.
Now, in addition to video that was taken with regard to the leaf blowing process, or the use of the leaf blower, were the photos that were taken on scene as well?
Yes.
And, Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 27. Sergeant Lank, what's up on the screen that's been previously marked as exhibit 27? Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
I recognize that to be the scene that we were working with the leaf blower.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Lank, with using that laser pointer, you could draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observe in this photograph in relation to what you saw on scene that day.
So it appear to see blood drops here in the snow
Excuse
that
me,
had
that
been
was
revealed
Miss
by
Goode.
wiping away the top layer, as well as the glass from the snow.
Thanks. You can take that down. At any point in time when you were on scene, did you have any contact or interaction with a person named Karen Read?
I did not.
Did you see her on scene at all that day?
I don't see her. I believe she was there while I was there, but I don't.
Now, following your initial inside the home of 34 Fairview with Alvin Nicole Albert and speaking to Jennifer McCabe outside, who, if anyone else, did you speak with that arrived on scene that morning?
Matthew McCabe.
And when was it that Matthew McCabe arrived in relation to your arrival and when you spoke to the other?
Matthew McCabe arrived just a couple of minutes after I had walked out of the house the first time.
And so when he arrived, where did you go?
Moments after he arrived, I went back into the house to speak with Mr. McCabe.
And about how long a conversation was it that you were in the house when you were speaking to Mr. McCabe?
I'm not sure. I'd say maybe 5 minutes.
And over the course of that morning, about how many times did you go into the residence at 34 Fairview Road?
3.
Anyone ever tell you that you couldn't go into the home or that stopped you at the doorway or anything like that?
No.
And with reference to inside of the home, what, if any, observations did you make of sort of situated anything disheveled or anything like that?
Everything appeared in order.
And just if you know, when it was Matthew McCabe have Jennifer.
Matthew McCabe is my husband.
Turning back to what was just up on the screen in Exhibit 27, with regard to those items observed in the yards in the front lawn that day, what, if anything, did you or the other officers do with respect to those items?
The drinking glass was secured into an evidence bag, and the blood drops were secured into 6 solo cups.
Why were secured into 6 solo cups?
We did the best that we could with the situation, with a deteriorating situation. Lieutenant Gallagher was able to attain the solo cups, Lieutenant Gallagher's house, which was diagonally across the street.
Now, with respect to the CPAC unit or the phone call that you made to the state police, beyond sort of the having over unattended deaths and things of that nature, what, if any, assets that the state police have at their disposal with regard to crime scene that your department has done?
They have crime scene units that process crime scenes.
Now, with respect to those items, once they were secured, just in reference to the solo cups, beyond sort of just the solo cups, what, if anything else, you or the other officers do to secure those items specifically?
They were secured into a brown evidence bag.
And following them being secured, where did they go from there?
They were then placed into my truck at that point, my police truck that I was using that day, and ultimately transported back to the police
Back to the police station
by me.
Once you were back at the police station with those items, what, if anything, did you do with them at that time?
They were secured into temporary evidence in the refrigerated unit for the solo cups, and the glass was secured into temporary evidence.
And so when you say temporary evidence, why were they secured into temporary evidence?
It was the temporary evidence so that they could ultimately be turned over to the state police.
And as far as when you secure something into temporary evidence, just in general terms first, what is it that you do with that item to secure it or label it or anything else?
So it's assigned a property number, and we would print out a property label, and then it's assigned to the OF number, which is the report.
So OF stands for offense, is that correct?
Offense, yes.
And so each report that you generate has a specific number with an OF following it,
That's correct.
and then that number is associated with the evidence that you secure, correct?
Yes.
Now, with reference to that evidence, whether it's temporary evidence or otherwise, what, if any, was there with regard to access to those items within your department?
So temporary evidence is accessible to all officers.
And to officers from your department, correct?
From our department, yes.
And following that, are you aware, or what, if anything, are you aware of what happened with those items after you secured them into temporary evidence?
I believe they were ultimately turned over to the state police.
Madam Mayor, Coach Evans?
Yes.
I'm handing you up a box. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Pierce box to secure evidence with a call number on it.
And Is that a box that you've seen earlier today?
Yes,
And with reference to what's contained within the box, have you seen that this morning as well?
yes,
Your Honor, with permission, I would ask that the witness be allowed to take what's in the box out of the box. Sir, just for the record, you have some evidence gloves with you in court today, is that correct?
that's correct.
Go into that. Just with the bag that you have before you, what if any markings are on that that relate to sort of your case, your can, please?
So it is a number assigned to us, 22-87OF, and there is a property number, 22-18PR, and it's listed as broken drinking glass. And
Have you seen the item contained within that bag earlier this morning as well?
yes,
And what you observed within that bag, is that the Kiso cocktail glass that you observed on the front yard area of 34 Fairview Road on January 29th, 2022?
Hi,
Yes, sir. Your Honor,
Rossi.
with court's permission, I would ask that the witness be allowed to.
Good day,
the
mate.
bag and display it to the jury.
I was just staring at my picture thinking, oh, it looks like I'm sitting in front of a window. And I noticed your chat up there. Welcome to the inaugural run of Bare Justice. Strip down. Good day, mate. Yeah, so I had this really great idea. I tried to do it yesterday, but CapCut always gives me like a gigantic headache. And so today was only a half day, and I thought, all right, I'm going to launch Bare Justice, where we take the trial. So my plan is to take each witness once they're done and start processing it. And then it'll be, so it'll be a little bit of a delay. So anyway, welcome to the inaugural run. This is witness 2. I was trying to figure out if there's a way I can slow it down. So what I did is I sped it up a little bit for some parts. I don't think I did it on all the parts. And then I ran it through the filter that took out most of the like ums and ahs and pauses. So I have to like tweak it a little bit because I think it took out too much. Like if someone just like took a breath, it kind of chopped it off. It's a little choppy, but I like it. So today was like, I don't know, 4-ish hours, and I got it down to 1 hour and 46 minutes. Woohoo! So that means I should be able to get a whole entire trial, I'm guessing, in like 3 hours. And it's just scoots right through all the anytime there's a pause. So anyway, welcome. I was zoning out. Then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, that looks like there's something written on there. Good day, mate. Thanks for joining me.
Yes.
I'm enjoying a raspberry smoothie. My daughter and I made a whole container of raspberries and
Once
yogurt.
we're back at the police station, what, if any, call did you receive from anyone in regard to what happened?
It's almost
What, if
gone
anyone called
really
you once you were back
fast.
at the station?
Jennifer McCabe called at 9 a.m.
And where did you go following that? Once you were back at the station, what, if any, call did you receive or to?
So I wanted to also say, for those of you who are watching now or watching later, can you add a comment underneath the video and let me know, do you like it? Is it too fast? Would you rather it just be like sped up a little bit and take out the big long breaks? Question mark. I think there's a way for me to say, okay, make sure that, you know, if it's longer than a couple fractions of a second, take it out. But if it's just like, you know, like they're taking a breath in between sentences, it doesn't cut it off. I don't know. I don't think it's designed to really do like long ones because it seemed to take a long ass time and then it kept crashing.
What happened? What, if anyone called you once you were back at the station?
9 a.m.
And so following that phone call with Jennifer McCabe.
Went back to 30.
So this is now the third time that you've gone back and gone inside the residence.
That's correct.
And who, if anyone, did you speak with, along with yourself and Lieutenant Gallagher, once you returned there that morning?
Jennifer McCabe,
But how long did you have with Mr. McCabe?
between 5 and 10.
And then following that, where did you go from there?
Returned to the.
Yeah,
Now,
see, it's a little
If I
too.
turn your attention to
It's almost too good.
February 4th, 2022. You working on that day in the same capacity that you had described earlier? At some point, approximately 8:50 a.m.
Yeah.
And what, if anything, or where did he direct you to go during the course of that conversation?
Lieutenant, excuse me, directed me to go back to 34 Fairview Road and meet with Chief Berkowitz. He discussed.
And in the time between 29th and February 4th, had you gone back to 34 Fairview Road? Now, the time of January 29th, 2022 and February 4th of 2022, what if occurred in regard to the weather in between those days?
So the weather had,
There is another thing I'm thinking of too, like I had just mentioned a little while ago. The problem with this trial is the judge comes in hot and the witnesses come in hot, but the attorneys come in so quiet that it's really hard to hear them. So
the temperature.
I think with the trial that had like equally volumed microphones, it would probably work better. Maybe.
Temperatures had increased and there was some rain.
And approximately how much?
I believe.
It's well above freezing, is that correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the snowfall that had come from the 28th and the 29th, specifically the 34 Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you observe between snow that you observed there on the 29th and the snow that you observed there on February 4th?
A lot of the snow had melted and a lot of the ground had been revealed.
And when you arrived at 34 Fairview Road, did you
Attention to a piece of red glass that was about 6 to 8 into the yard.
Now, before we get to that, as far as when you responded, who, if anyone else from your department, responded along with you?
Detective Tim Taylor.
And
Tim the Toolman Taylor.
you observed, where were they in relation to?
I was only like half paying attention.
Or where you had been directed to that Mr. O'Keefe had been found on January 29th?
Where Rossi says the attorneys keep moving away from the microphone is the reason. Oh. I don't know. It seems like even when they're like right on top of it, it still sounds it's not equal. And I think okay, so I did apply some filters, like normalize loudness, but because I had to take the thing and cut it in cut it in so many pieces, the whole each witness, because CapCut kept crashing, so I had to make it in smaller bits to do what I wanted it to do. And I think I also enhanced the voice, which I think is making him sound like a robot. Eee!
Glass was in the vicinity of where Mr.
Now, with respect to that pieces of plastic that you observed, what, if anything, did you do to memorialize where they were?
So if you watch them, they keep walking around talking. See that okay, so the judge, Bev, I call her Judge Darth because she does the in the, microphone. But like, she harps on the witnesses, oh, you gotta speak into the microphone. No, it's true. Each microphone is different, and some you have to talk in the top, some you have to talk into the side somewhere. So I get that, but she doesn't seem to have a problem with Lally running all over the place.
Photographed the piece of plastic as it sat.
And did you or anyone in your presence touch, manipulate, or move those pieces of plastic in any way?
No.
At some point after you arrived on scene, who would you contact in regard to?
I contacted the CPAC unit, and ultimately, mechanic arrived back at the scene.
Last between the time that you contacted CPAC and the time that you arrived?
I honestly don't recall.
And when did you observe him to do with those pieces of plastic that you directed his attention to?
Trooper Buchanan secured the item into a evidence bag.
Coach Jordan?
Yes.
Sir, I'm showing you some photographs. Ask you just briefly to look them over and look up when you're finished. Do you recognize those, sir?
I do.
What do you recognize in those photographs?
I recognize this to be the piece of plastic that Chief Berkowitz had observed that morning.
Those are the photographs that you took that morning as well, is that correct?
That's correct.
What's contained in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed in 2002?
Yes, it is.
Commonwealth seek to introduce and admit as the next to exhibit.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have, and, Lieutenant Lank, do you recognize what's picked up on the screen currently?
Yes.
Thanks. Ms. Gilman, the next photograph. And, sir, do you again recognize what's up on the screen?
Okay, so this is
Yes,
a big
it's
hub.
a close-up picture of the piece of plastic.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can.
This is a big hubbaloo that they found that chunk of tail light. Close. See if that works. Oh, see now why is there a pause in this and it didn't take it out?
2002. This evidence can be considered by you insofar as it demonstrates or relates to the credibility of this witness and the thoroughness of the investigation into this defendant is currently on trial.
I want to start by asking you about your relationship with certain
High school and into our
That
20s.
was really
And
choppy.
I wouldn't say.
draw your attention to an incident in
In
August of
theory, this
2002.
is a great
Do you remember
idea.
an incident in 2002 occurring with that involved Chris Albert?
Yes.
In 2002, in August of 2002 specifically, you were off duty, correct?
Yes.
You had been drinking alcohol, correct?
Yes.
You were approached by Chris Albert out in the parking lot. Is that right?
That's correct.
Chris Albert told you some information about being in a fight. That he had been in a fight or an altercation of some sort, correct?
He told me he had been in an altercation earlier in the night and some threats had been made to him and his family.
And you got out of your Mr. Albert, correct?
No.
You just talked about, okay, at some point, did some other individuals approach that same area?
Yeah.
Was there a fight that you believed was about to ensue?
Yes,
Did you get out of your car at that point?
I did.
Did you come to Chris's aid by, quote unquote, activating yourself?
I got out of my car and I approached the group and I pleaded with them I said, there's not going to be a fight tonight. He's here with his girlfriend. There's not going to be a fight tonight. I came to the aid of a citizen.
That citizen happened to be Chris Albert, whom you had known since you were 12 years old.
Correct.
So tell me exactly based on
Ultimately, a fight did break out, did it not?
Yes.
That fight.
Yes.
And drinking alcohol at that point, correct?
Correct.
And you were off duty in August, just like you were off duty in 2022 when you were called to activate and come to the crime scene at 34 Fairview.
When Sergeant Goode, I was not working. I was due to work at 7:45. Sergeant Goode contacted me and told me what was going on, and I activated myself.
And that's similar sort of activation, using that word in air quotes, it's similar sort of activation you employed back in 2002 to assist Chris Albert,
No.
or someone to call the police and get some Canton officers over there, correct?
Excuse me. So in 2002?
In 2002.
Yes.
Okay, and I failed to ask you this, but in 2002, you were in fact a Canton
Yes.
at the time. After the other officers arrived, did you order the other officer to handcuff or one of the two brothers that were involved in this fight with Chris?
No.
what's important to the
Ultimately,
defendant's
did you see whether or not those officers, brothers that was involved in this fight?
Yes.
And did you then engage physically in a fight with the other brother who was not restrained?
No. There had already been, the struggle had already.
All right, so let me make sure I get the timing right. You did, in fact, engage in a physical fight with one of the brothers, correct?
Upon being struck, yes.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Upon being struck,
And then you struck him back.
yes.
You ended up on the
Go wrestling, yes.
and pull you off that man, correct?
No.
You ultimately, the other brother.
Correct.
All right, and that fight was broken up by the officers who were on scene.
Yes.
After this physical altercation with the brother who was not ultimately restrained, both of the brothers and everybody else was just told by the officers, just go away, get out of here.
No, I believe one of the brothers left the scene, fled the scene, and the brother that was restrained was ultimately uncuffed and left free to go.
And nobody was arrested that night.
Correct.
Nobody chased down the brother that left the scene, correct?
That's correct.
And nobody arrested the brother that had been handcuffed.
Correct.
And no police reports were written by you or any of the other officers about this incident on that.
I don't recall when the other officers wrote theirs. I did not write mine on that night.
The next day, you became aware that one or both of the brothers had arrived at Canton Police Department to file a
Must've been
formal
taking a
complaint for having been
screenshot.
physically attacked by you and some of the other officers involved, correct?
I don't recall when I was made aware that they had come down to the police station.
You are aware that there was a complaint sought against you for the physical attack that was alleged to have occurred, correct?
It was brought to my attention that they had come down to the police station.
And you also are aware that only after a complaint had been sought, the police reports were then dated to the two brothers, correct?
So I had spoken to the sergeant on duty the night of the
That's
incident.
no question. I'm just looking at the time.
It's not a yes or no question.
So he was just asking you about dates. So can you answer the question? Ask the question
Could you
about the
repeat?
dates again, please.
I'm seeking the events. A fight occurs, a complaint against you occurs, and then police reports are filed against the two people that are complaining against you.
Yes.
And you're also aware that although he had been in a physical fight that night, no charges were ever brought against him, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you know that?
Don't know. I don't even know where the fight occurred.
Officer Lank, what we just talked about, is that an example of you using your position as a police officer to come to the aid of one of the members of the Albert family?
It was me coming to the aid of a citizen who was terrified and scared for him and his family on that night.
Who happened to
Who
be
happened?
named what?
Excuse me. Who happened to be Chris.
You mentioned Kevin Albert. Who is he?
Kevin Albert is a
A
detective.
co-worker?
Yes.
How long have you known him?
Probably 15 years old.
And you also consider him to be a friend as well as a co-worker
I do.
and a colleague.
Yes.
And you also Brian Albert.
Correct.
And you're also aware that the reason that your department was ultimately recused from this investigation, Lieutenant Lank, is because of bias or conflict of interest between the Albert family and the Canton Police Department.
Yes, there was a perceived bias.
Can you tell me one more time, fast forward to the incident in question. What was the exact time that you arrived at the location, if you know?
I believe it was around 6:20.
Okay, and you indicated that that was in response to a call that you got from Sergeant.
Yes, that's correct.
What made you decide, or could you have decided, to take this particular call? Was it up to you, in other words?
I would never not take that call.
Okay, fair enough. So once you got the call, you knew that you were going to respond because there was
That's correct.
Did you know at the time you got the call that that very serious incident was occurring at 34 Fairview?
No.
When did you realize that?
Upon speaking with Sergeant Goode.
Okay, so Sergeant Goode didn't, I guess that's what maybe I asked an inartful question, or had to have, that it's at 34 Fairview.
He did.
Okay. At that point, did the light bulb go off and you think, ding, that's the Albert House?
I don't recall if I realized it then or once I turned onto the street. I don't recall.
At some point before your car came to a stop, you knew this is 34 Fairview, this is the Albert household.
I knew that was Brian Albert's house, yes.
When you arrived, who was the officer at the scene? You mentioned, obviously we've heard these names, Sergeant Goode, Officer Mulaney. Who was the ranking officer?
When I arrived, Sergeant Goode was the ranking officer.
Have you reviewed either, well, let me ask you a different question. Did you have a dash cam in the vehicle that you arrived in?
I did not.
And that's because it was that a detective vehicle?
Yes.
Sometimes used undercover, et cetera?
Yes.
So it's not a fully marked cruiser.
No, not at all.
The other cruisers you're aware did have dash cams, correct?
Yes.
Have you reviewed any or all of those dash cams from Officer Mulaney, Officer Seraph, Sergeant Goode?
Yes.
And you reviewed those in preparation for your testimony?
Yes.
I'd like to show you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 16. And I'm going to ask Mr. Bates if you could fast forward to the runtime of about 28:35 or so, with the court's permission.
Yes.
Before we play this, it appears to be a still image of
So let's not just,
see on the screen.
I see two still images.
Okay. Do you recognize either or both of those images?
Yes. It looks like the scene from that morning. I believe it's going to be the top one anyway is 683 Officer Seraph's cruiser.
And the bottom one? Okay. We could fast forward to the 28:40 mark or so for a second. You want to maybe we approach briefly? You indicated that you have reviewed these videos in anticipation of your testimony today, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to the top video, and specifically to an area around this area in the video, which is highlighted. We play a couple of foundational questions. Did you meet with Jennifer McCabe out behind the vehicle that's depicted in the officer's dash cam?
Yes.
Did you have some sort of a conversation? Did you see Ms. McCabe leave your presence and walk toward the driveway?
Once the conversation had terminated, I honestly don't recall where she went.
Did she tell you that she intended to go inside the house?
I had said to her that at some point, and Nicole,
Why did you think it was important to speak to Brian and Nicole?
because
And somebody was laying unconscious and unresponsive, correct?
correct.
That could potentially, at least, implicate.
Based on my conversation with Ms. McCabe, she had stated that the intention was for Mr. McCabe, for Mr. O'Keefe to join them at that house. So we wanted to get statements from everybody who was there.
Find out what happened, correct?
Correct.
I mean, that's sort of the obvious in interview all of them, correct?
Correct.
Again, by talking to Ms. McCabe, correct?
She identified herself as a friend of Mr. O'Keefe.
Who had been with Mr. O'Keefe just hours before.
Yes.
He ended up laying in the snow, fighting for his life, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That there were other witnesses potentially inside the house because she just told you that.
I knew that that was ultimately where he was supposed to end up,
So if there were other witnesses in the house, individuals in the house, they also were potential witnesses.
potentially.
And Ms. McCabe indicated, I'm going to go in the house, correct?
She's going to have to wake her sister up because we're going to need to speak with them.
You didn't think that it was more important to separate the witnesses and not let her talk to witnesses?
No.
Appropriate to let all the witnesses get together and just discuss the facts before you have an opportunity to interview them separately?
Objection.
Yes to the form.
I'm just letting them. Sorry, go on.
That's fine.
Lieutenant Lank, if you could direct your attention to the area that I highlighted earlier. Let's go ahead and play the video. The car in the distance.
It appears to be somebody walking towards the house.
Was that Jim McCabe?
I can't say for sure.
Do you see yourself, by the way, in this video? Where are you?
Right here.
Stopping place that I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about. Apologies. No, go, move on, sorry. I'm standing in front of someone. Short.
I believe, right there? Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Who is that?
I believe it's Kerry Roberts.
How's it? Did you see yourself just exit screen right?
Yes.
Did it appear that you had something in your hand?
Yes.
You were taking a call
Yes.
on your cell phone.
Yes.
What was that call?
I don't recall. It could have, I can't see what time that is. I don't believe that I made the call to the CPAC unit until around 6:38, so I'm not sure who that call was from.
If you'll direct your attention, I think now down toward the or below,
Yes.
you may see yourself enter the frame. Can we go ahead and play it? Go ahead and pause it. Does it appear you're on the phone?
Yes.
Go ahead. Pause it. Did it appear that you walked off screen left?
Yes.
Still on the phone?
Yes.
Go ahead. Pause it. Did you see somebody following that same direction?
It looked like Officer Sarif.
Go ahead and play it.
Actually, I'm wrong because that's Officer Sarif right there, so I'm incorrect.
You think it might have been Sergeant Goode?
Could we play it back?
With the court's permission.
Sure, go ahead.
Pause. Do you recognize that person?
Yes, I'm mistaken. That's
I didn't know you
Sergeant
could hear
Does it
when
appear
I
that
was
you walked back
editing.
into the frame?
Good. Yes.
Are you followed by
I
anybody?
didn't know the
believe it's still
audio
Sergeant Goode.
bled through.
Are you speaking to Sergeant Goode or are you walking away from him? Can't
Might
you
have to
tell?
use two different computers.
In that frame, it appears I'm standing right next to him.
Let's go ahead and play it. Pause it. Did it appear you were sort of walking away from Sergeant Goode off frame again?
Yes, it appears that I'm pacing.
Were you still on the phone?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead. Pause it. Directing your attention to the top video, do you see the SUV in the video?
Yes.
Does that SUV appear to be leaving the scene?
Yes.
Do you know who was in that video? In that SUV?
I believe it's going to be Kerry Roberts and Karen Read.
Go ahead and play it. Pause it. At that point, are you walking back into the frame on the lower video?
Yes.
At this point, Lieutenant, are the lights on at 34 Fairview on or off?
They still appear to be off.
And at some point while you were at the scene, did the lights come on? I think you testified to that earlier.
Yes.
I'd like you to pay special attention to that moment and maybe tell me to stop when you see those lights come on. It may be a minute or so.
Sure.
At this point, does it appear that you're still on the phone?
Yes.
How's it? At this point, is there anything that changed in the scene?
Yes.
What's that?
It appears that there's now a light on inside the home.
And at this point, Ms. McCabe has been inside the house for approximately how long, if you could estimate?
Maybe 3 minutes.
And are you still on the phone? Or have you ended that call?
I can't tell if I'm still on the phone at that point. I know that right around this time is when I end up speaking to the CPAC unit, because I believe I get into the vehicle.
Let's play it just a little bit further forward, maybe another 30 seconds or so. Stop it. Does it appear at this point, if you can see, does it appear that you've ended that call, or at least your hands are down by your side?
I can't tell.
You would agree with me, that's all I have for that. You would agree with me that that was without counting the seconds, that was about a 5-minute phone call, or maybe a little better than 5 minutes.
I wasn't watching, to be honest.
Do you have any idea who you were talking to now that you've seen that?
I could make an educated guess, but I don't know for sure.
You did notice that several minutes after Jen McCabe went in the house, and while you were on that phone call, the lights finally came on at 34 Fairview.
Correct.
At the point the lights came on, the ladder truck had already gone, left from the scene, correct?
I believe so.
The firefighters are all gone.
Yes.
The ambulance has already left and transported Mr. O'Keefe.
Yes.
The paramedics are gone, the EMTs.
Yes.
Fire captain and his SUV, that's gone. Is that right?
I'm sorry, was there a question?
The fire captain and his SUV, that's gone.
I'm not sure.
In other words, all the fire and EMTs have...
I don't see them on camera.
Doesn't appear that any fire or EMTs are still on scene, correct?
Doesn't appear so.
Carrie Roberts is gone.
Yes.
Karen Read is gone.
Yes.
So when the only parties left at the scene are members of the Albert family, Jen McCabe, and the Canton Police Department representatives, that's when the lights inside 34 Fairview finally came on. Is that it?
Yes.
And then minutes after that call, you did then speak to CPAC, to dispatch, correct?
CPAC dispatch.
Right, I was getting to that. It was a dispatch, and the dispatch was to CPAC, not to Canton PD.
Correct.
And at some point, did CPAC dispatch indicate that they were on their way, they had declined the call? What was that call all about?
So there are two separate calls.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Who did you talk to at CPAC?
I don't recall who handled the first call at dispatch.
Do you remember having a conversation with Kelly Dever?
No. I think we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about CPAC dispatch, Canton Police dispatch.
Fair enough. At some point, did you have a conversation with, well, let me ask it this way. I just don't know. Did you talk to both Canton dispatch and CPAC dispatch?
I definitely spoke to CPAC dispatch.
And okay.
I'm not sure if I spoke to Canton dispatch or not.
All right. At some point, did you indicate to one or the other, I'm responding to 34 Fairview, we have a Boston police officer who was just found?
I stated that I was already at 34 Fairview.
You indicated
I
that he
believe.
does have some trauma to his head area?
That's correct.
And you said, quote, I'm not sure if he's been in a fight or whatever. Our medics don't believe he's going to make it,
Correct.
end quote. Sergeant, you never saw John O'Keefe's body.
Correct.
So somebody disclosed to you that it appeared that he had been in a, quote, fight or whatever, at least at that point. That was your thought.
No.
And what made you say, well, you didn't say to dispatch, the victim appears to have been shot.
Correct.
You didn't say it appeared that he'd been stabbed.
No.
He had been strangled.
No.
You didn't say it appeared he had been hit by a car.
Correct.
You said it appeared he had been in a fight or whatever, correct?
I stated that he had some trauma to his head, and I said, I don't know if he has been in a fight, and then I believe I described it as I don't remember my exact terminology, but it was a crazy scene.
Chaotic scene?
Possibly. I don't recall my exact words, something to that effect.
But you do recall your exact words to dispatch being, I don't know if he's been in a fight or whatever.
Correct.
I want to talk about inside the house for just a few minutes, if I could. You've talked extensively about the crime scene outside, and we'll get to that in a second, but I want to talk about what did or did not happen inside the house. Did you actually make it inside the house at some point?
Yes.
When was that? How long? Let's use Jennifer McCabe as the time frame. How long after that did you finally go inside the house, after she'd been in the house?
So it was specifically just after I got off the phone with CPAC.
So just a few minutes after we ended that video.
Yes.
And you walked you said either along the driveway or through the yard.
I believe it was up the driveway.
Once you went in the house, you made contact in the house, correct?
Yes.
And you believed, at least at that point, that there was a potential that there was a, let me rephrase that. You knew that you were dealing with a violent incident, correct?
No.
You thought maybe it was just a heart attack?
I didn't know what it was. At that point in time, I didn't know what it was. Could have been a multitude of things.
But what was going through your mind at that point was it could have been a fight or whatever, because he had trauma to his head. Those were your words.
Those were my words, yes.
So you didn't think it was like some old man who died of old age, right?
Based on his age, no, I wouldn't have suspected that.
You didn't think it was an accidental drowning or something?
Again, it could have been a multitude of things that caused those injuries. So at that point in time, we had no idea what we were looking at.
But you were aware that it had something to do with a violent incident. He had trauma to his face and he's unconscious, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you believe that there were any indicators that Mr. O'Keefe had been involved in some sort of a physical altercation?
Possibly.
And that's because you used the phrase, he had trauma to his face and head, right?
That's what I had been told, yes.
So based on what you had been told, you knew that there was a person laying out unconscious just outside a residence that may have been involved in a physical altercation. That's fair.
It's a possibility, yes. But again, there were a multitude of things that were going through my head as possibilities.
But that's one of the premier possibilities, right?
I wouldn't say it's premier, it was one of the possibilities.
And it's logical to believe that if a fight had occurred, very well may have started inside the residence 30 feet away.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you believe in your mind that it was possible, given the fact that a violent confrontation was possible in your mind, that it could have started inside the house?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach?
Yes.
Ma'am?
Sure.
Lieutenant Lank.
You see how
given
fast
what
that
you believed
was?
At the time and the
Huzzah.
possibility that there was a fight
That-
or whatever.
Just
Did
pause
you
for a
logically
moment.
think in your mind, your state of mind?
It does a lot better editing with Alan Jackson as the attorney than it did with Lally. So I'm making a note. A note for that.
Was it possibly could have started in the house,
If it had been a confrontation, it could have started anywhere.
right? The house is part of anywhere, right?
Correct.
So in other words, the house is not excluded in your mind at that point as a starting point for the investigation. Is that right?
Well, the starting point would have been where Mr. O'Keefe had been discovered, and then based on speaking with the witnesses, there was no indication that he had ever made it into the house.
Well, you didn't know that until you followed up on your investigation, correct?
I learned that by speaking to Ms. McCabe.
So you just took Ms. McCabe's word for it.
At that point in time, that was the only person I had spoken to, and she gave me a timeline of events from that night where Mr. O'Keefe was supposed to come back to the house, but never made it.
Have you ever been, in your course of investigating cases, have you ever been lied to by a witness?
Objection, Your Honor.
Can you answer that? Have you ever been lied to by a witness?
Yes.
So it's not necessarily the best investigative technique to just take a witness's word for something, correct?
Objection.
That's sustained.
You need to actually investigate the circumstances for yourself and to your own satisfaction. Is that a fair statement?
Sure.
One of those investigative techniques would be to walk into the house and figure out who's who there, correct?
Can you rephrase the question?
Sure. One of those investigative techniques to satisfy yourself that you're actually getting to the truth of the matter would be to walk into the house and figure out who's in the house first.
I will agree that I needed to speak to the people in the home. I can't just walk in their house. I have to announce myself, and they don't have to let me in.
I understand. I'm not trying to parse those words. I just mean entering the home and interviewing witnesses. That would be a normal part of your investigation initially, correct?
Yes.
And you also knew that the most obvious place to look for witnesses that may have information about a fallen man in the snow would be 30 feet away in the home. So once you're inside the residence, you walked in the front door, correct?
Yes.
You indicated that there's a stair that services the second floor. Is that right?
Straight ahead, yes.
Right. Just before the staircase, there's a door to your left, right?
I don't recall.
You remember whether or not there's a door that when you open it, goes directly downstairs to the basement?
I don't recall.
You indicated on direct examination that you didn't notice anything, I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me. You didn't notice anything out of place in the home.
No.
But you didn't go downstairs to the basement and look, did you?
No.
Didn't look for broken furniture down there?
I didn't enter the basement at all.
You didn't look for torn clothing down there?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
How about anywhere in the house? Did you look for broken furniture or torn clothing or blood evidence?
That's one of the theories, is he was unalived in the basement, and then they carried him through like some type of basement door. I don't know what they call it out east. Like I don't know. And then through the backyard, because last week, somewhere I think I saved it. Last week when the jurors went on the View, not the one with Whoopi Goldberg, the view of the house, of the crime scene, somebody had made note that the jurors were not allowed to look in the backyard behind the fence. And bulkhead, I think is what they call it. They think that he was unalived in the basement, carried through the bulkhead, I think is what they called it, out from the backyard into where he was. That's a theory.
Evidence or DNA evidence?
At that point in time, I never made it past the front foyer area.
So the answer to my question is no, you did not.
I never made it past the front foyer area.
So if I were to ask you one more time, I know you never made it past the foyer. Did you ever investigate the foyer area or any other part of the house for evidence of a fight?
The only area I was able to observe at that point, everything appeared to be in order.
But you didn't search the rest of the house for a fight, Lieutenant. That's all I'm asking.
No, I wouldn't have had probable cause to do so.
Did you seek guidance from a court as to whether or not you might have probable cause?
Do you mean a search warrant?
That's what I mean.
I wouldn't fill out an affidavit for a search warrant because it wouldn't have probable cause.
In your mind, there was no PC to search that house, right?
Objection.
Let's move on from this.
One of the ways to secure a premises, any premises in a normal crime scene investigation, would be to remove the witnesses and animals from that premises to squeeze it and lock it down, correct?
If there was reason to do so, yes.
Were the witnesses in this case
I would ask him if he saw the dog, because that's another theory, is the dog attacked him. I was saying in chat or messages or something, the past few days of testimony, it's not really my dog, it's my ex-husband's Labrador, this latest one. She is great-great-granddaughter of our old dog Newman, and her name is Frankie. She's 3 now. But when she was, in that puppy first year-ish stage, I was trying to teach her to sit out in the front yard with a sausage, because, I had doggy sitting responsibilities on occasion. And I was trying to teach her to sit holding the sausage firmly in my hand and my fingers. And, she's a puppy, so she went and jumped up and nabbed it out of my fingers, and she caught my finger with one of her, big long snaggle tooths in the front. And I thought I needed stitches because it bled for a whole day. So those dogs have really, especially the pointy ones, really sharp teeth. So, but I was just kind of thinking here, like, did anybody have, I don't know if they've even asked any of these officers if they caught a glimpse of the dog when they walked in. Okay, I want to have one more commentary section, and that is, that Richard Allen trial has gotten the Delphi case, Libby and Abby. I I just read, I think it was yesterday, it got pushed out now till October, November again. But, you know, that's another trial where there's like, you know, conspiracy between the law enforcement. You know, did they do the right job, or did they just, you know, find you know, a local lackey to, you know, tag the charges on? You know, and there's, you know, the tinfoil hat group. I wear mine proudly. But like this trial here, up until a couple weeks, I kind of waffled, and I thought, you know, she probably did just, she backed up and didn't mean to, but, you know, caught him with the thing. But then the more you look at those injuries, like if he was hit by a car, he wouldn't have had like his eyeballs looked like there was ping pong balls underneath them in the pictures. So, and the pictures I saw, there was blood like dripping out of his eyes. You don't get that from being hit by a car. I don't know. But I'm just saying, if this trial, you know, there's the tinfoil hat group with this, and then there's the people saying, well, she probably just, you know, it was probably an accident. And the prosecution overcharged her. That happens a lot too. But I'm just saying, if this goes through and they actually uncover the fact that the law enforcement was corrupt and the law enforcement did, you know, just find someone to accuse, think about Zachariah Anderson for one. Hey, I've got my merch around here. I think I have my sticker. I got a hoodie and I got a tank top. I'm not sure where it is. And then like the Delphi case, you know, maybe those will have different outcomes. I don't know. And then look at, I've talked to you many times about the fall of Minneapolis. My ex-boyfriend is in there, Officer Alan Williams. And that was produced by Liz Collin. Her husband, Bob Kroll, is a good friend of mine. He's the former Minneapolis Police Federation president. But, you know, look what happened with Derek Chauvin. If you haven't seen The Fall of Minneapolis, it's free. They crowdfunded it so everybody could watch it. thefallofminneapolis.org, I think, or .com. It's free to watch. But I'm just saying, maybe this is going to be the one that's going to rip the Band-Aid off of, you know, corrupt law enforcement does exist. And it makes good cops angry, in my opinion. All the cops I know are great people. They just absolutely hate stuff like this. I don't know. There's my commentary. Let's continue.
Is asked to come outside the house in order to freeze the house down as a potential crime scene.
No.
Were any animals removed in order to freeze and lock down the house as a potential crime scene?
I didn't observe any animals.
Did you, and this is the last question on this issue, did you do anything to lock down and secure that premises, the inside of the house, in any way, shape, form, or fashion?
Can you rephrase that, please?
Sure. Did you do anything to lock down and secure that premises in any way, shape, form, or fashion?
No.
Did you allow witnesses to go inside the house other than Jen McCabe?
Yes.
Who was that?
I believe Matt McCabe entered the house after I had come out.
And did you seek to separate any of the witnesses or admonish them that they are not to be in each other's presence and discuss the facts of the case before you had an opportunity to interview them?
No.
And as you sit here, you have no idea, when you were not in their presence, you have no idea what the occupants of that house were discussing
Correct.
or what they were doing.
I have no idea what they were doing.
I have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Given the fact that you were the first law
How
enforcement
fast
officer
that
inside
was.
the house, did you seek
Gonna
to
get
photograph
whiplash
anything
watching
inside
Bare
the house?
Justice.
When you say I was the first law enforcement officer, I was with Sergeant Goode. Both of us walked in at the same time.
That's fair. I don't mean to be vague, but you were sort of leading the discussion, correct, with the interviews?
Yes.
At least according to Sergeant Goode, you were taking charge.
Sure.
As the first law enforcement officer to take charge inside the house, did you seek to photograph that
No.
premises or that location?
No, I did not.
Did you make any drawings or diagrams of the layout of the house?
No, I
bent
did not.
cup.
Did you note where the furniture was or was
I'm trying to
not?
mess around with the
I don't know what
colors.
you
I
mean.
don't know why
Did
the
you
colors
note in
are
a
so.
diagram where furniture was? There's a dining room table here, it's got 6 chairs, there's a kitchen table over there.
No, I did not.
Did you note in any document where the individuals were, the human beings were, in relation to each other when you walked in the house?
Are you asking me where I were, or did I make a
I'm asking you
diagram?
whether or not-
No.
Had you been told at the time that you went in the house that John O'Keefe was found out in the yard that there was a shoe missing? His right shoe was missing?
No.
You didn't have that
As
information
far as I
yet?
know, they
did
never
not.
have
Did
found
you
the
subsequently
shoe.
learn that?
I learned that much later after we had already cleared the area.
Tell me what much later means. Days, hours, weeks?
I honestly couldn't give an exact answer on that.
I think I know the answer to this, but you didn't do any search for any missing
Oh,
clothing
that's me taking a
when you went
screenshot
inside
of
the
them.
house.
I did not.
I didn't know you could see that.
Last question on this, or last series of questions on this issue. You understand the importance of electronic devices in modern investigations, correct?
Yes,
iPads, cell phones, things of that nature,
sure.
because they can record things like photographs, videos, conversations, text messages, and emails.
Yes,
Would you consider electronic devices relatively vital in modern law enforcement investigations?
I'm sorry, violent?
Vital.
Yes,
Right? They're critical items of evidence, right?
Yes.
It's like walking around with your entire life in your palm of your hand.
correct.
Did you seek to secure any electronic device from any of the occupants of that house that morning?
No,
Did you ask for consent to look through their electronic devices, for instance, their cell phones, for text messages or communications?
no,
Did you believe, well, turning back to a question that you were asked by Mr. Lally, you did in fact interview Brian Albert at the scene, correct?
yes,
You also interviewed his wife.
yes,
Did you believe at any point before you interviewed Mr. Albert that it was incumbent upon you to let your supervisors know that there may be a conflict of interest because of a personal relationship that you had with the family?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you ever, in fact, not whether you believed it was important, but did you ever, in fact, notify any of your superiors at Canton PD or any other law enforcement agency that you had a personal relationship with the Albert family or members of the Albert family?
I did not.
You indicated that you believe you spoke to Mr. Albert and his wife, Nicole Albert, for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Is that what you said?
Roughly.
Did you record that conversation?
I did not.
You had your cell phone with you, correct?
Yes,
That has recording capability.
yes,
Was anybody else with Nicole, when I say with, in earshot of Nicole and Brian Albert when you interviewed either one of them or both of them?
from McCabe.
So you interviewed them together.
Yes.
Did you then interview Jennifer McCabe?
I had spoken to Jennifer McCabe outside. To the best of my memory, I believe once we were inside, I was able to get some more information from her based on the chronological order of events.
And when you were getting this information about the chronological order of events, that was within earshot of Brian Albert and Nicole Albert.
Yes,
So when you interviewed Brian Albert, Nicole and Jennifer McCabe were listening, correct?
yes,
When you interviewed Nicole Albert, Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe were listening.
yes,
And when you got this chronological layout of the night before from Jennifer McCabe, Brian and Nicole were both listening.
yes,
After you met with the three of them and interviewed them, you indicated that you came back. You had already left, you came back. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, so forgive me. When you came back, it was around 9 a.m.
no. I came back just moments later.
Had you actually left, I may be a bit confused, so I apologize. Had you actually left and driven back to Canton PD?
No.
So you just came back in the house?
When Mr. McCabe entered the house,
No, I'm so sorry. I'm jumping ahead, so that's unfair. You left, now we're at the point where you've already cleared the crime scene. And then at some point you get called back
yes,
because Ms. McCabe said she had additional information she wanted to impart.
yes,
When you interviewed Ms. McCabe that second time, were Brian and Nicole Albert there?
yes,
Were they within earshot?
yes,
And they listened to that conversation as well.
yes.
After that conversation, did you meet with any other witnesses between February 29th, later in the day, January 29th, any time until February 4th?
No,
None.
no,
I do want to talk for a second, just a brief second, about setting up a crime scene outdoors. You indicated that the crime scene was relatively secure, was your word. It was relatively secure because there were cars or cruisers sort of around the perimeter
Yes.
of the yard. Is that right?
That's correct.
Crime scene tape wasn't working because it was windy.
Crime scene tape was up, but it was being blown all over the place.
Okay. And of course, Canton PD has the ability to go get stakes and just hammer some stakes into the dirt if you wish to.
No.
You don't have stakes at Canton PD?
No,
I
we-
mean stakes. Stakes.
I know what stake is. No, we don't have any.
Canton PD doesn't have
That
those.
was funny.
No.
So if crime scene tape was blowing down, that was just sort of a let's give up on it. Wasn't doing any good.
No.
In your mind, it was futile.
The crime scene tape was futile. It was left up until we made the determination to take it down, but it wasn't doing its job.
All right. And once the scene was cleared, all those cruisers that were protecting that crime scene were now gone, right?
Yes.
And all the cruisers were gone by about 7:50 in the morning, 7:50, 7:55.
Yes.
So before 8 a.m., that crime scene was completely open. I'm sorry, after 8 a.m., that crime scene was completely open,
Yes.
unsecured,
Yes.
and available to anybody who wanted access to it.
Correct.
One of the reasons to secure a crime scene is to minimize the possibility of evidence destruction on one hand, correct?
Yes.
And evidence tampering on the other hand, right?
Sure.
And examples of evidence tampering could be just moving a piece of evidence.
Objection, Your Honor.
That's not too much further with this.
I've just got a
She
couple
always
of
cuts
questions.
them off.
Could you repeat that, please?
She never
Sure.
says that
An
to
example,
Lally.
or a couple of examples of evidence tampering could be something as simple as moving a piece of evidence, moving it from here to here, correct?
That would be tampering, yes.
Hiding evidence, getting rid of it, right?
Yes.
Taking evidence out of the scene or putting evidence back into the scene, correct?
Yes.
Or even planting evidence that didn't exist before. All of those would be examples of tampering with evidence.
Yes.
And setting up a proper crime scene minimizes or eliminates the possibility for that.
Setting up a crime scene would could you say that again, please?
Sure. Setting up a crime scene minimizes or tries to eliminate the possibility of that type of evidence tampering. Obviously.
It would, but at this point in time, we weren't aware. At this point in time, state police had said they weren't responding. So there was no longer an area to preserve at that point.
So in your mind, well, let me phrase it a different way. What that means is after 8 a.m., that scene was just open.
It was.
You found both the blood that we saw pictures of and the cocktail glass that we were just introduced to this morning, correct?
Yes.
You searched the area that was adjacent to where you believed the body was. Is that right?
We searched, I would say, about a 6x6 or 7x7 area,
6x6 or 7x7?
roughly. 6 feet on each side.
Right. You were looking for obviously anything that was out of place, anything that didn't belong,
Yes,
like a man's 12 shoe would have caught your attention.
it would.
A black baseball cap would have caught your attention.
It would.
Piece of plastic broken probably would have caught your attention.
Yes.
Certainly 45 pieces of plastic would have caught your attention.
Yes.
And between you and Officer Seraph, Sergeant Goode, Officer Mullaney, Lieutenant Gallagher, none of that was found.
The only things we found were the stuff that were documented.
You did find the blood, however, is that right?
Yes.
Who literally leaned down and scooped that blood up?
Me.
And that was done in a plastic solo cup that we've heard a little bit about. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
You're aware that those solo cups are unsealed.
I believe Lieutenant Gallagher got them out of a sealed package.
When I say unsealed, I mean they don't lid on.
Oh my God, I was laughing so hard when I watched this yesterday. I watched part of it during the day, and then I watched part of Ian Runkle's recap of it at night. And I was laughing so hard because Alan Jackson said red Solo cup so many times. Like he was just trying to hammer it home. Used a red Solo cup. What are those Solo cups? I have a funny story, just a tangent. When I went to the Harley 110 with all those police officers that I mentioned earlier, we saw a whole bunch of concerts. That's where I met Dana White. I have a picture of me and Dana White. I should put it up here. Anyway, one of the concerts was Kid Rock, another one was Aerosmith, another one was Toby Keith. I can't remember who the other one was. Doesn't matter. I want to say it was like Cheap Trick, but there had to been somebody else that was the main. Aerosmith, Kid Rock, Toby Keith, Aerosmith. No. Well, anyway. Toby, when I'm not a big country music person, but when Toby Keith was on, because we were actually, all of our beers was in like red Solo cups. And I looked at my friend Sarah and I said, "Oh my God, have you ever heard that country song, Red Solo Cup?" And then like 2 songs later, and she goes, "Yeah, I've heard it." I'm like, "Oh, this sounds so much like that," because I didn't know who Toby Keith was. And like 2 songs later, he starts singing it. And I'm like, "Oh my God, he's the one that sings it." It was really funny. Did you hear Toby Keith died? Not too long ago, like a couple months ago. Sad. Anyway, everybody was like holding their laughter, waiting for me to discover that Red Solo Cup was sung by Toby Keith. There's your story for the day.
They're not airtight containers.
Correct.
So once you scoop up the snow and the dirt and the debris and the grass and everything else, along with the blood, they're just open for the air.
Yeah, there was in blood. There was no dirt and debris in the that I can recall.
You're sure about that? There's no dirt and snow?
I didn't observe any, no.
You didn't observe any dirt in the snow? You don't think there's dirt in snow?
I didn't observe any dirt in the glass. Excuse me, the cup.
Okay. Certainly wasn't a cup.
No,
Certainly wasn't a crime scene cup.
no.
You're aware the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab warns against collecting any biological material in anything made of plastic, correct? Are you aware of that?
No.
After when you scooped up the blood, did you videotape that process so we know exactly which blood stain was scooped up from where?
I don't recall if it was videotaped, but we did not document which scoop went in which cup.
Okay. So if multiple contributors of the blood, we'd sort of have no idea which blood drop belonged to whom, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Once these unsealed were in your possession, what did you do with them?
The cups were placed into the Toyota Tundra that I was driving that day and ultimately returned back to the police station.
Okay. and
See how
you
he
told a
kept
little bit
say-
about
keeps
the
saying
process once you
unsealed.
returned back to the station. They
Just
were put in a
rubbing
brown
it
evidence
in.
bag, correct?
Yes.
And ultimately, when you log these items into tell me the name of it again, it's temporary evidence?
Temporary, excuse me, the blood was put in temporary evidence refrigerator.
Okay, inside the evidence bag. Cups are inside the evidence bag and it's logged in.
I don't recall that. I'm not sure if I took them out or not. I don't recall.
You indicated that there's an item or property number that's assigned to them.
Yes.
There is generated a seal or a label to go on the evidence that's being stored, correct?
It should, yes.
And the bag is sealed. The evidence bag is sealed like this red that we see on this thing, correct?
When possible, there are certain items that can't be bagged, and then sometimes you create a tag and attach it to a tag.
Right, but if it's a brown paper bag that's an evidence bag, you certainly just fold over the edge of it and just put a red evidence seal on it to make sure that that's secure and not tampered with, correct?
That would be one way to do it, yes. I don't recall if I left them in the bag or took them out of the bag. I don't recall.
If you left them in the bag, you likely would have, if you're booking them into evidence, you likely would have used some red crime scene,
Yeah.
not crime scene tape, evidence tape.
If I had left them in the bag, I would have put the property label right on the bag.
So everybody could see it.
Yes.
Okay, there's an bag with important evidence in it. Don't mess with it. It's secure, correct?
Yes.
Can we have tab 23? Do you recognize what's depicted?
I believe it's Ms. Reed's vehicle.
For the record, you're looking at what's been previously marked as Exhibit 37. You see the little white rag down there by the right rear quarter panel?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to tab 24. See that white rag?
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes,
See a bag sitting next to it?
I do.
Doesn't look like an evidence bag, does it?
No, it looks like a Stop and Shop bag.
Stop
But
and Shop.
actually, it looks like an evidence bag. It just doesn't say Canton Police on it. It says Stop and Shop, but it does look like an evidence bag. It's the same thing.
That's a grocery bag.
It is. And that's exactly what our evidence bags look like, so that's what I thought it was at first.
All right, except it doesn't say anything about evidence on it. It says stop and shop, correct?
Correct.
What do you think's in the evidence bag? I'm sorry, stop and shop bag.
So I want to pause just a moment to remind you that yesterday at the end of day 5, and I forget if he's a sergeant or a lieutenant. I want to say he's lieutenant. Lank here basically went through all of this testimony yesterday at the end of day 5 because he was voir dire, meaning he was giving testimony outside the presence of the jury. So if a lot of this seems repetitive from yesterday, that's why. Continue. We're almost done.
I'm not sure.
You were when these pictures were taken?
I could tell that it's the Canton Police Sally Port, so it's some after the state police had seized the vehicle.
And at some point after you had brought the solo cups back to the station.
Correct.
Matter of fact, these were taken on February 1st when Canton, the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab finally took possession of these items of evidence, correct?
I was not in the police station for those 2 days.
Let's look at the next tab, tab 25. You recognize that?
It appears to be solo cups with substance inside.
Are those just any solo cups, or those the solo cups that you took back to the station from 34 Fairview?
I mean, I couldn't say definitively, but it certainly looks like it.
It appears to have red liquid material floating in the bottom.
Yes.
Appear to be blood.
The top 3 I can see, yeah. The only 2 that don't have it are the bottom 2 left.
Okay, let's look at the next tab, which is 26. And do you see somebody with gloved hands opening that bag? Same bag, rag, right there?
I do.
Okay. That appear to be the same 6 solo cups?
That you just showed me in the previous slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Are those the same 6 solo cups that you gathered at the scene at 34 Fairview and ultimately brought back to Canton PD?
They certainly appear like they are, but I can't say definitively, but they appear to be.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your words. Go ahead. Are you sure?
They appear to be the same solo cups, but I couldn't say definitively.
Let's go back to tab 24. And the reason you can't say definitively, Lieutenant, is because there is no label on this bag, is there?
Not on that side of it, no.
There is no property number on this bag, is there?
Not on the side that's visible to me, no.
There's no evidence tape on this bag, is there?
Not on the side that's visible to me, no.
Well, let's look at the other photographs. Are you well, before we do that, are you suggesting that all of that material is on the other side of this bag?
I don't know. Suggesting anything, I'm telling you I don't know.
Okay, let's look at the next tab. Looking at it from the top, does it appear anywhere from that vantage point that there's evidence tape that's ever been put on that bag, that has ever been secured?
I wouldn't be able to tell you that.
Well, one of the ways that you can tell that evidence tape has been put on an item is because when the evidence tape is placed on it, it's completely sealed. And if, in fact, its seal is ever broken, it's not torn off, it's cut, and there's initials put on, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Have you ever used evidence tape before to seal anything?
I'm sure I have. I don't recall off the top of my head.
How long have you been a detective? I'm sorry, how long were you a detective when you were a detective?
I was a detective for 11 months as a sergeant, and then I was a detective for 15 months back in 2011-12.
And in your experience, and how long have you been a police officer?
Over 24 years.
So in your 24 years of experience and over a year as a detective, you can't remember if you've ever used evidence sealing tape?
As I said, I'm sure I have. I just can't recall one off the top of my head.
If you call using it at all, isn't the protocol that when evidence sealing tape is used to seal an item of evidence, when it's removed, it's not torn off, it's cut, and then new sealing tape is put over it with an initial and a date, correct?
Objection.
Do you know the answer to that?
I don't.
Okay, next question.
Thank you. That's all I have this.
Okay, I'm going to see Kaibar for just a minute, please.
Look at how fast that
Bring
was.
them over. Yes, please.
Please, please. Rise for the jury. Faculty may be seated.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have at this time.
Okay. Mr. Lally?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, with regard to incident you were at about from August of 2002, can you explain in your own words what happened?
Doesn't even look like there's
So
a
I had left
microphone over
the
there.
establishment, Centerfields is what it was called at the time, and the owner had asked me if I could drive a patron home who had too much to drink, so I obliged. Walked across the street to the parking lot.
Okay, I'm just going to pause for another moment. This is where he gets into, again, we heard this yesterday when the voir dire thing was happening outside the presence of the jury. So he's going to talk about this fight with one of the Alberts.
Got in my truck with the patron, and as I was pulling out, that's when Mr. Albert approached my truck and told me how he had been in an altercation earlier in the evening with Mark Lapalato, and that Mark had made threats towards him and his family, that he was going to harm his family. They had a young child at the time. Mr. Albert was concerned, asking me what he should do. Excuse me. As I was telling him what I think he should do, he said something to the effect of, "Oh no, here they come." And I observed multiple men walking down the sidewalk in our direction. At this point, I got out of my truck, approached the group, and pleaded with them. I said, "Guys, not tonight. He's by himself. He's with his wife, girlfriend. There's not going to be a fight tonight." And I did my best to diffuse the situation, but they weren't. They made several attempts to push past me. Ultimately, a match ensued. Mr. Lapalato at one point said, "I know who you are, I don't give a fuck," and asked me what I was going to do about it. A wrestling match ensued. I was punched, and at that point I defended myself and did engage in a physical altercation with Mark.
Now, you were asked about sort of timing of right report until a couple days later, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why was that?
I had spoken to the shift supervisor that night, and I asked him if he wanted me to return and generate a report at point, and he advised me that I could do it the next time I was at work, which was a couple of days later.
And as far as the police responding to that parking lot that night, how were they notified, if you know?
I had yelled across the street when the pushed its way past me. I yelled across the street to the bartender and the owner had made their way, excuse me, out onto the sidewalk street area. I yelled across the street, and I said, "Call the police." They ultimately come on.
Now, what, if any, relevance factor did any of that have in your minds in regard to your response and interviews or anything that you did on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely nothing.
And in fact, that involved Christopher Albert in 2002, correct?
Yes, it did.
And you were at Brian Albert's residence in 2022, correct?
Correct.
And just to be clear, just because their last name is Albert, they're separate people, you have separate relationships with each of those persons, correct?
Correct.
Now, you grew up in the town, you work in the town, fair to say you go to calls regarding people that you know,
Yes.
whether that be witnesses, people that you arrest, any of the like, correct?
Correct.
Now, with regard to questions that you were asked about Mr. O'Keefe, just to be clear, you never laid eyes on Mr. O'Keefe's body at any point in time on January 29th or thereafter, correct?
No, I didn't.
You were asked some questions about, on the cruiser cam video, whether you were on the phone. You indicated that you could make an educated guess as to who you were on the phone with. Who would that be?
Lieutenant Gallagher.
And so at the time that you're on the phone from that video, Lieutenant Gallagher was not on scene yet, correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to the weather on that day, you talked about a bit of the weather as you're seeing. During the time that you're on scene, did it essentially persist in the same manner?
Yes.
And then later on that day, what, if any, change occurred regard to the weather?
While we were there, it stayed this. If anything, it might have gotten even worse.
And from your memory of that day, did that continue throughout the course of the day while you were working?
Yes.
Now, with regard to in the house at 34 Fairview Road, each of those occasions, if you could, with respect to the 3 occasions that you went inside the house to speak to people, where were those people within the house?
first time I went in, Brian Albert and Nicole Albert were located, I believe, on the stairs or sitting possibly at some point on the stairs. Jen McCabe was to my right. The second time I went back in, excuse me, was also through the front door, and it was the same positioning, except this time Matt McCabe was present, and Matt was also to my right.
And then on the third occasion, when yourself and Lieutenant Gallagher came back to speak to Ms. McCabe further?
We went in through the door to the right, so it's to the right of the main door. We went in through that door and stayed in like the dining kitchen area. That's where I spoke with Jennifer.
And that third time that you went back and you spoke with Jennifer, where was Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matthew McCabe, any of those parties that were there before, if you know?
They were present. I actually, Matthew McCabe was there the third time. Brian and Nicole were there. I believe they were in the general vicinity, but I couldn't tell you exactly where they were.
And same thing when you went back on that third occasion, what, if anything, did you know as far as the interior of the house, anything askew, anything out of place?
No, everything looked to be in order.
Nothing further on.
May we approach very briefly?
Yes.
Mayor, Your Honor.
Yes.
Very briefly, Lieutenant Lank, you indicated that, claimed in your that you were assaulted by the Lopolito brothers, correct?
Yes.
Fact is, they were never convicted of anything having to do with this case, the case that, isn't that true?
Correct.
You also indicated that they made a, either a threatening comment to you or a disparaging comment to you about, I don't give a fuck, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true what was actually said was you said to them, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to make your life miserable?
No.
All of this incident was in furtherance of you protecting a member of the Albert family when they asked for your help, correct?
No, it was me protecting someone who asked for my help who was clearly in fear.
Who happened to be an Albert.
Happened to be an Albert.
Thank you.
All right, you are all set.
Dun, dun, dun.
You're all set, sir. Let's try and get testimony from one more witness.
Yes.
And jurors, we will break right at 1, but let's see if we can get more testimony in, please. Who's your next witness?
No.
Swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case now and here is true, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Okay, so this is the last one, and the ending is already built in. So I have one thing I have to do. There, that was for fun. I made that a month ago. So thank you for joining me for the inaugural run of Bear Justice, where we take the trial footage and we strip it down bare. So this is the last one. There's 10 minutes left. He didn't get too far into it. If you could please, I made some notes. Where are my notes? This one? Nope, not that one. The other note. Okay, here's my notes. Are you ready? I think I can put it right there. So I made a note not to use the fast forward. So the very first and maybe second clip I did bump it up to a fast forward speed. And I think when we're chopping out all of the bits and parts, maybe I'm not going to try that. Maybe just do just like 1.1 speed. I think I can do. Also, I'm not going to use the voice enhancer because I think it makes him sound like a robot. This trial is just like a guinea pig for me to try some things out. Make sure to check out the trial BOMBS's. They're shorts. I'm having a lot of success with those. Getting quite a couple hundred views on that one I put up yesterday, which is way more than I get over on YouTube for other things. So just using this Karen Read trial to kind of test out some things. The first 4 days I did do trial recaps, but they took a really long time. And I'd like to thank Ron and Rare Aussie for passing the test on the last one that I did. There was a quiz in it, and only certain people passed the test. So I do appreciate you coming in and giving it a thumbs up. But I would really appreciate it if you'd watch it, because it takes a lot of time, to put these together. I got the triplets graduating in a month. So, see, Rare Aussie says, I watch everything you put up. Oh, you're so sweet to me. Thank you. Thank you very much. I do ramble, but, I try really hard. This has been over a year of working for free. I've never worked on anything so hard in my life for $0. No, this is for justice. It's not for money. All right. So I do appreciate you being a guinea pig for me. I think Bare Justice is going to work once I tweak it a little bit. Yeah, they're graduating in a month. High school. It's being held at the Target Center, downtown Minneapolis, where concerts and stuff are. So that's kind of cool, because I know some of my family, my brother lives up in Andover, so he can just take the train downtown now for that. We're in the southwest burbs. My dad's in the northeast burbs. So, but I do really appreciate those of you that are tuning in and, helping me figure out where I fit in this true crime world. Because I'm not sure. I know I have a place. I just have to figure out where it is. All right. So I'm going to try to do the trial bombs. I didn't really see anything here other than the end of this guy's testimony with that piece of glass. So maybe I'll do a quick trial bomb. Those don't take very long. Those recaps that are 10 minutes, those take hours. But so I think I'm going to kind of segue over to those trial BOMBSs, the shorts, and keep doing those. And then I'd really like to use this trial to fine-tune this Bare Justice. Because if I can run it through and get it to work, boy, this is going to... Because I know when I used to do trials last year, I would always start them on like a 3-4 hour delay, and we'd watch it at 1.25 times speed and always get caught up. And now I'm seeing some other people are doing that, but even then, there's still sometimes where there's a little bit of a lag. So, and I know people are working this afternoon. I want to kind of try it a little bit later than I normally do, just to see if that'll hit a different demographic. I don't know. So thank you for being my guinea pig. I don't have money to give you, but I wish you good juju. But anyway, so a lot of people are covering this trial. So I'm just using it as more of a guinea pig. And I really want to watch it. So it's kind of, checks off 2 boxes, if you will. So there's that. So I think this has actually been pretty good. Like I said, the interaction between Alan Jackson and the witness was way better editing than the interaction when Lally's talking, and I think it's because Lally's volume's coming in funny. So again, thank you. Thank you again, and thank you one more time. All right, so this one already has the ending built into it because I was going to upload it. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to keep doing these as a live stream. I might do it again tomorrow. Maybe see if I can't get it put up a little earlier even, because I know like tonight Publicly Buzzed was doing a recap. I'm pretty sure Ian Runkles is doing one at least every other day, I'm thinking. Maybe he's not going to do it today because it was a half day. But, these trials are really interesting, and they take a lot of time to watch them and absorb the information and, politely discuss. So Hopefully this is a way to get the trial in efficiently. At least that's my thought. So if you could please put a comment below if you have suggestions. I noticed there was a lady, Beverly. She's like, I watched most of it. It's okay. So I appreciate that. If you could tell me what's okay and what's not okay. I mean, if it's okay, it means I don't think people are going to watch it. I want it to be excellent, as Monty Burns says from The Simpsons. All right, so there's my long rant. So like I said, this is going to go for about 9 minutes, and then the outro is already built in. And we will see you soon after it. Oops, I suppose I should switch the screen.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Charles Ray, R-A-E.
And how are you employed, sir?
I work for the Canton Police Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Police?
Approximately 25 years.
And what rank or assignment do you currently have with the Canton Police?
I'm a lieutenant.
Oh, do you like my
And,
little
how long have you
cartoon
had
guy?
the rank of lieutenant with the Canton
We could probably skip through this. I was trying to look for... Okay. I was trying to find an AI generator. I don't know if I dare say this out loud, but I was trying to get it to, like, draw a cartoon of, like, a lady judge with blonde hair and, like, short bangs. You know, like bowl cut bangs. With her robe on the floor and, like, covering up her body because her robe fell off. That was what I was trying to get an AI thing to do, and it didn't work. So I ended up finding this guy. He kind of looks like Dingleberry from Zachariah Anderson's trial, doesn't he? He does. Schrader, Bruce Schrader. He kind of looks like that. So I couldn't find it without a watermark, and I thought, well, this is perfect because I have to put something over there, you know, for the bare justice. So I hope you enjoy it. My kids thought it was hysterical. Okay.
I've been a lieutenant for about 9 years.
And what, if any, sort of specialized duties or assignments do you have within the Canton Police Department?
Day-to-day, I'm going to be a patrol shift commander. Some ancillary duties include overseeing the Family Services Unit, which includes juvenile services, school resource officers, sexual assault investigations, and special populations.
And if I could turn your attention to January 29th, 2022, were you working?
Okay, I wanted to mention one more thing. So this guy has to come back tomorrow, and when the judge had her bitch session earlier, like, you know, we're taking a whole bunch of the jurors' time, you know, so much of their time, but I'm thinking this guy got, you know, probably took half the day off to get. Maybe he wears this. I was told that the officers were told not to come in uniform, to just wear suits. So but I'm thinking, you know, he came and he testified for like 18 minutes. That's it. And now he has to come back tomorrow. That's not a very efficient use of his time. And then last week it was, a full day Monday, half a day Tuesday, no trial Wednesday, half a day Thursday, and then Friday was the view. So it was maybe half a day. It was a whole day for the jurors, but not a whole lot of testimony. They only got through 12 witnesses last week. And frankly, let me just say, I'm kind of anxious to have them get off of the first responders and move on to maybe like the medical examiner and some other, like the bartenders and people that saw them before they went back to the house. It's like we've been on the same, like, kind of line of questioning for this whole time. I don't know. There's my rant.
That day?
I came into work the day shift about 7:30 a.m.
And what is the day shift of the Canton?
7:45 a.m. to 3:45 p.m.
And when you arrived that day at the department, if anything was...
Oh, I was taking a screenshot. Okay, I think I took 3.
It was a well
because every time I would hit the button, he'd close his eyes. Okay, the third time's the charm.
There was a lot of There usually is a shift change, a lot of comings and goings, leaving the shift, people coming onto the shift.
Or maybe I only did it.
It was a
twice.
busy dispatch area at that time.
And at some point after you arrived at work, were you made
Big
aware
red
of
circle.
a call that your department had dispatched to
Yeah, it
shortly
does.
after 6 a.m. on that day?
Okay.
Correct.
Doesn't it feel like, I mean, it's almost like basically the same things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. We've been stuck on the same, like, what, hours worth of time? Them showing up and them leaving?
And so, just in general terms, what was it that you learned about that call?
I'm sad my
Outgoing
smoothie's
shift
gone.
sergeant, he returned. There's a roll
No,
call.
it's nothing but
I believe that
seeds.
day, I don't recall there being a roll call, but there was exchange of information as there typically is, the dispatch area. And I was advised that there was an unresponsive man found in the snow, Fairview Road.
And that outgoing supervisor was who?
Sergeant Sean Goode.
And if any information were you given as far as the unresponsive man?
He was a Boston police officer. He was 34 Fairview Road.
Yes. At some point, did you learn what his name was?
Yes, Mr.
And who did you learn?
Mr. John O'Keefe.
And you familiar with Mr.
I'm going to pause again. We're almost done. Another observation I had is they all kind of look the same. That's my opinion.
O'Keefe?
I had never met him before, no.
At some point, did you become aware of where he lived?
Yes.
And what you had learned from Sergeant Goode, in addition to Keith being transported from the scene to the hospital, who, if anyone else, was transported from the scene to the hospital?
I was advised that his girlfriend was on the scene as well, and she was subsequently transported to Good Samaritan Hospital, same hospital that Mr. O'Keefe was transported to.
And at some point, the course of that morning, did you become aware of that Mr. O'Keefe was responsible for as far as the legal guardianship?
Yes, I was aware that was the guardian of young children, may or may not be at the house at that time unattended. In fact, that both he and his girlfriend were transported.
Based on that information, what, if anything, did you decide to do?
I'm not sure if it was a suggestion of the former chief or if it was just organically developed, but it seemed like the right thing to do a well-being check on the children at the on Meadows Ave, which was Mr. O'Keefe's residence.
And just with respect to the former chief specifically, who are you talking about?
Berkowitz.
Well-being check, if you could describe to the jury sort of what is involved in that and what does it entail as it applies to this situation?
As it applies to this situation, I believe that there may be 2 young unattended children and that both Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Read wouldn't be returning to the house anytime soon. We wanted to check on them so that if they woke up and where everybody was and need some assistance, that perhaps we could provide that and locate other loved ones or bring them to the police station if we had to, just to kind of some sort of comforting presence.
And within the Canton Police Department, is there a specific cruiser that's allocated for sort of shift supervisor?
Yes, 682.
And is that the cruiser that you use to go to One Meadows Ave?
We did.
And when you say we, who, if anyone, went with?
Sehan and I. He was the incoming sergeant.
And what, if any, role does Sergeant Leanne have with regard to the department? Specific role?
Now he's a detective sergeant and prosecutor. At that time, he was a shift sergeant.
And so the 682 cruiser that you were driving, are you aware that that has a cruiser camera fixed to it?
Correct.
Have you had occasion to review that footage from that particular cruiser on that particular morning?
I have now, yes.
Your Honor, if I could, to publish for the jury for Exhibit 41.
Okay.
Gentlemen, if I could have that on the screen, if I could ask.
Oh, another thing I have a problem with is if they do play a video,
And what's up on the screen right now?
does
do
edit
you
the
recognize
video.
what that is?
That'd be the interior of Sallyport Door 3, which is where the 682 would have been parked.
And from there is where you drove from that position to One Meadows Ave, correct?
or
Correct.
it might.
Gilman, if you could
I think it did a little bit on that last guy's.
Pause it there. And Ms. Gilman, if you could, I would ask you to.
So this is outside Karen's house, or John O'Keefe's house.
25 seconds. If you could play it from there, please. What's up on the screen, Lieutenant? Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
One Meadows Ave.
And sort of toward the middle of the screen is is that sort of front door to the home?
I think that was John's house, and
That's
she
correct.
had a different one.
The door that you went to, is that the door, or did you go to a different door?
I don't remember which door we went to.
With respect, this home, had you ever been there before?
No.
Subsequent to this, did you come to learn also that the residents of One Meadows Ave had cameras of its own?
Yes.
Have you seen camera footage from both the driveway and the front door from the residents from that morning when you were there?
Yes.
Now, as far as a well-being check, if you could just sort of describe to the jury, what is it that you're doing with regard to a well-being check when you come to a house like this?
We check to see if there's anybody there. Typically the case. And I go knock on doors and see if there's any activity of anybody at the home.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could hit play. So it appears from this you
So
pulled
here's the
into
big
driveway at,
hubaloo
One
about the
Meadows Ave,
tail
is that correct?
light.
Yes.
And there's a vehicle directly in front of you, correct?
Correct.
And at the time, you were not aware of sort of the particulars of the incident that occurred earlier.
I don't know
in
if you
the
can
morning,
see my mouse.
Correct.
Can you see my mouse up here?
And fair to say, from what's depicted up on the screen, was that essentially what the driveway
I have
looked
to do
like
a
at
setting.
that time when you came in there at approximately 8:23 in the morning, correct?
Yes.
And as
Now, can you
far
see my
as
mouse?
when you went to knock on the door, are you just
Right
knocking on the
here
front door and then no one
is
answers
where the
and
tail
that's
light's
it? Or
supposedly
look
cracked.
around the house, what is it that you do on a well-being?
So
You
there's
would go to the front door or the door that you think everyone would use in a whatever the situation was. Take a cursory glance around to see if there's any reason to check anywhere else. In this case, it's a fenced backyard, so I'm not going to be going back there. If in this case, we weren't looking for someone that might be a dead body, we were looking for 2 children that would be up and active.
Now, as far as that vehicle that's parked in the driveway in front of you, did you have any reason to look at it, inspect it, or anything like that at this point that you're at the house?
No.
And as far as any condition of it, specifically the right rear passenger side, you didn't have any occasion to go inspecting that or looking at it at that point, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as from this video, the condition of the right rear passenger side and the condition vis-a-vis the left rear passenger side, that's how it appeared in the driveway when you pulled up, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if you could hit play.
Oh, that's
Pause
better.
right there, Ms. Gilman. Sorry, the individual just sort of crossed the front of the cruiser. Do you recognize that?
So you're going to be looking right here is supposedly where she cracked it.
Yes.
Which isn't that too high to hit him?
Sure how, maybe we
You'd think if he would have gotten.
Okay, we're gonna need you back tomorrow. We're
Okay,
gonna
that's
break
it.
for today.
Okay.
Jurors, that's it. You can stay just for a minute.
Pause. You would think that if he got hit, oh, there's that animation. I should find it. There was a guy on with Vinny, what's his face, on Court TV, his show. I forget what his show is called. I don't watch it very often. But he had some guy that's very anti-Karen Read. I'm anti-corruption. I'm pro justice for John O'Keefe. Whoever did this to John O'Keefe deserves to be punished. If it was Karen, she deserves to be punished. I think they charged her too high. I think if she hit him, it was an accident that she likely didn't remember because she may or may not have been, drunky. But in my opinion, I think it was, I thought it was an accident for a while. He would hit the bumper before the light. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And even if he was, so this guy that was on Vinny, what's his face's show last week, I'm pretty sure I took a screenshot, but I'm not entirely sure where I put it. Did I put it on Twitter? I might have put it on Twitter. Let me just see. Or X. And I'm pretty sure I said something along the lines like, well, the guy didn't even use the right freaking vehicle. It looked like he drove an Edge. I think that's what I put. Let me try to find it. I use Twitter. formerly Twitter, now X. A lot. Edge. Yeah, here. Now, can I put it up on the screen? Is it as large as I can make it? No, that's not it. Okay, pause, pause. Oh yeah, you can see it. Here, let me just fix it. All right, so this guy was on Vinny last week. And this is his animation. Now, you'll notice, see how his name is backwards on the screen? Because I had to mirror it, because he had it wrong, like the opposite of what it was supposed to be. So watch this. This is how he surmised that John got hit. Now, look at that car. That car looks like a Ford Edge to me. The Lexus SUV is much taller. Here, watch it again. This is what you think happened. Okay, fine and dandy. So hit his head and then, you know, scrape up his arm. I can see that. But then what about his eyes? He had blood dripping down his eyes on the, like, you know, corner table. So, like I said, why in the world wouldn't they use, you know, her actual vehicle? That's a sedan, in my opinion. So there you have it. I mean, it's definitely plausible, but like I said, that's if he's using a sedan. And Karen's Lexus has 2 lights. I mean, you could just sit and look at it. And this reenactment, Jen O'Keefe impact on Court TV last night. Does that look like the size of Karen Read's Lexus? Looks to me like a 2021 Ford Edge. That's just like something else. All right, now I gotta get rid of this. All right. So this has got like 45 seconds left. And then there's going to be my outro, my new outro I worked really hard on. So I appreciate you for being here. So I'm going to make my notes and I'm going to try a few different things. And if I can swing it, I'll do a live stream so I can talk with you while we watch it and work out the bugs. I appreciate you. When I'm rich and famous, I'll always remember you. Rare Aussie, I'll always remember you when I'm rich and famous someday. That'll never happen. Not doing this, that's for sure. I tease. Who knows? All right. So I will see you soon.
Sure how maybe we approach.
Okay.
We're gonna need you back tomorrow. We're going
Put your thoughts in the comments.
Jurors, that's it. You can stay just for a minute, please.
Hopefully the next one won't be
Today, we
so
ask
choppy.
those same 3, or I give you those same 3 cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any.
And I think I'm actually going to
research
cut
or
out like
investigation into
her
this case.
instructions,
If you happen
or
to
as my
see,
dad
hear,
calls
or
them,
read anything about this
distractions.
case, please disregard it. Let us know.
All right, I'm going to check out because here comes the loud music. Enjoy!
No, that's it for today. We're good. Thank you. You don't need me for anything, right?
No, I do not, Your Honor. No.
All rise, please.